thank you again for your patience, and we are going to be talking about Hermetic consciousness and Jung's Undiscovered Self. So let us start by talking about consciousness, what consciousness means. Consciousness means awareness, being or having knowledge and cognitive a state of mind that makes you aware of yourself and your situation and your surrounding environment. So that is a very general thing, which is the necessary awareness to exist. So it is an awareness of your own existence, but not your own being. The Hermetic consciousness is an integral awareness of, I just want to disappear because it's, yeah, okay, now it's fine. The Hermetic consciousness is something to do with being aware of the outside, like the cognitive one, but it is being terribly aware or acutely aware of your spiritual self, your inner self. So it is a combined awareness of your outside and inner self. So it is a consciousness of being, and it is consciousness of the integrated being, of the whole being. That's why, because it includes the spiritual, the very, very inner one. The Jungian consciousness, on the other hand, is split into consciousness, which is being aware of things like the one we know, and unconsciousness, or unconscious, that hidden in it all sorts of things, and buried in it all sorts of things. And not every one of us is aware of it or even taps into it, because it has got probably dangerous things that most of us don't want to know about. And I put here awaiting integration, because when we come to Jungian's Undiscovered Self, we will see that in order to reach the real self or the true self, the self has to succeed in integrating the consciousness with the unconsciousness. So here we have Jung saying, my thesis then is as follows. In addition to our immediate consciousness, which is of a thoroughly personal nature, and which we believe it to be the only empirical psyche, there exists a second psychic system of a collective universal and impersonal nature, which is identical in all individuals. This collective unconscious does not develop individually, but it is inherited. It consists of pre-existent archetypes, which can only become conscious secondarily, and which give definite form to certain psychic contents. And here we have Egypt as being the mother of mythology, although in fact most people talk about Greek mythology much more than they talk about Egyptian mythology. It says again, is Jung, so far as we can say anything about it all, appears to consist of mythological motives, of primordial images, for which reason the myth of all nations are its real exponents. In fact, the whole of mythology could be taken as a sort of projection of our collective unconscious. And in another quote, Jung says, Jung was asked, why do dreams speak such an obscure language? And Jung replied, it doesn't speak an obscure language. It speaks a forgotten language that we no longer understand. So it is like, and there is a whole concept of from where we get our knowledge. Is it remembering, or it is relearning it from other sources? So it is actually information and knowledge is done through remembering past things that were hidden in the depths of our psyche. So if we go to the Egyptian mythology, we have two myths. that they are fundamental in the Egyptian mythological system that are called the creation myth, how the cosmos came about, how our existence came about, our place in the world. And of course, all have got metaphorical connotations and philosophical connotations, and we'll try to understand both of them. I put Thoth, who he became Hermes, in the middle between the two Hermopolitan creation myths. The two Egyptian mythologies, creation mythologies, because he plays a great deal of work in the Heliopolitan one and also in the Hermopolitan one. The Heliopolitan one is called the Ennead, or number 9, or because it is 9 figures in it. And we probably know roughly about it that we have Atom, who is Ra in his dormant state before he becomes Ra. And when he finally becomes himself, he becomes Khibri, which is the scarab, which means becoming. So the non-being and the being and the becoming are actually included in Atom. Atom, according to the original Heliopolitan myth, when he cried, he became dew and rain, and that is Tifnut, moisture. And when he laughed, he became Shu, which is air. And in fact, the humanity or human beings are usually referred to in ancient Egyptian mythology as the tears of Ra. And then Shu and Tifnut got married, and they gave birth to Geb and Nut. And Geb is earth, and Nut is heaven or the sky. And Geb and Nut loved each other, and Ra, for some reason, got angry with them and wanted to separate them. So the sky became the sky and earth became earth. And in fact, in this mythology, earth is a man and heaven is a woman who gives birth to the main god, Ra, every day, which is the fascinating thing about this mythology of creation. But in order to allow humanity to be created or to be born, Thoth intervened and stole some time from the moon, because he's also known as the deity of the moon or the god of moon, which is, again, it is the seat of memory, of human memory. But he stole 4 days, or he played the game and won the game with the moon and got 4 days. And in these 4 days, we have the birth of the first family in history, who are Osiris, Isis, Nephthys, and Set. And that is, this 4 days actually explains the difference between the solar and the lunar calendar. And despite the fact that Thoth is a lunar deity, when he invented the Egyptian calendar, it was solar. So we don't have in ancient Egyptian mythology these separations between everything complement everything else. Then we have the Hermopolitan one, which is the Ogdoad, that is number 8. Again, we have here the primordial things are the powers of creation as we know it from Greek and Hellenistic times, that water, earth, fire, and air. And if I asked any one of you, is water feminine or masculine? It depends on everyone's mother tongue. It could be masculine sometimes, it could be feminine sometimes. But the Egyptians had, which is again something very Jungian, had feminine and masculine in everything. So they had a feminine water and masculine water and so on and so forth. And out of the 4 primordial masculine forces and the 4 primordial feminine forces, out of their marriage, harmony, balance, integration was born. Again, the one who did all that was thought, because he's the lord of the Ogdoad or Hermopolis, as we will come to very shortly. But we can see that thought, who became Hermes after that, is essential to these two myths and essential to the creation, be it the Heliopolitan one or the Hermopolitan one. So, as I said, atom, Ra, Hebri is different stages of being. It is atom when he was still not yet created. It's non-being in a dormant, sleepy state, and then becomes being, and then evolves into becoming, which is Hebri. And you can see that we have the sun disk and atom or Ra in it with Hebri in it, which is really, it shows being and becoming within the sun disk. And we have here a very interesting saying from the coffin text, which is again very interesting because the coffin text was the first to mention Hermes Trismegistus, and they were found in Deir el-Bersha, very close to Hermopolis. And they are older than the Book of the Dead and all that. So all of these things are connected. It says here, I was alone with the primeval ocean in the inertness, floating between two waters, totally inert. And it was my sun life that roused my spirit, who made my heart live and gathered up my inert members. So that is actually, it describes non-being. Non-being is essential to being and becoming in ancient Egypt. You have to recognize the inert state of the potential state of being. And one who was Ra, atom, or Hebri became two because they were split into two entities, into Geb and Nut. So when I say when the one and then the one became two, this is actually the division, the first division in history or in the creation, because everything was one, everything was united, everything, and that's why the Egyptians always refer to the everlasting a beautiful beginning when everything was integrated and was one. But then a split happened. And there is a very beautiful, again, expression that the ancient Egyptians referred to life as when a strife began. So it is when a struggle starts, because if you have two, and if you have division, that means you have a struggle, you have a dialectic, you have a continuous rivalry, you have everyone tries to win, and that is you don't have unity. So with non-unity or with the splitting, you start to have a strife, and you start to have this kind of conflict between the two entities of being. And we said that the splitting was always into male and female, and even with the Hermopolitan mythology, there was always a male and female. So here we are going to talk about Isis and Osiris as that kind of prototype of the female-male combination. Which is called the divine marriage or the animus of Jung. So unity give rise to division, give rise to struggle and conflict, and then we have always male and female, and in the story, and then this male and female. Actually, we know the story of Osiris, that Osiris, Set was envious of him. Again, they are the two poles of the equation because they are two brothers, the two sides of the equation, the bad guy and the good guy, and there is no bad or good. We are beyond bad and good or bad and evil. It's actually how we see each other. They are all necessary. Each one is necessary to the other. But we know how the first tragedy in history which is the dismembering of Osiris into pieces, and the collection that happened of his body and putting it together so he becomes the eternal beautiful one that all the Egyptians would love to be like him. So it is the kind of the continually renewed one. We see Nephthys and Isis with the dismembered Osiris putting his pieces together. And they say in the Passion of Osiris, "Come, let us lift up his head. Come, let us rejoin his bones. Come, let us reassemble his limbs. Come, let us put an end to all his woes." So it is the agony that began with this first tragedy, and it is the dismembering that we need to put together, and the putting together is the recollection, and the recollection is the remembering, and the remembering means the learning. And the same story means death and rebirth, because he obviously, Osiris became the god of the underworld and the ever-eternal one that comes back every spring, and from his body we see grow the corn. And again, in the coffin text, it says, "Whether I live or die, I am Osiris. I enter in and reappear through you." So it is internalizing. That's what we are going to refer to as the divine one. When you reach everything and you realize yourself that you are forever renewed, like Osiris, it says, "I enter in and reappear through you. I decay in you, I grow in you. The gods are living in me, for I live and grow in the corn that sustains the honored ones." So that means that it is the life cycle. It is just death and rebirth is continual, and it is almost the eternal circularity or the eternal return of time. We have also Isis, who always holds her son Horus, who became the product after the assembling of the pieces for some reason. Isis, of course, through her magical powers and her amazing knowledge, she managed to get pregnant by Osiris, and as a kind of immaculate conception, and Horus was born. So she became the first, and for all, the mother archetype. And we can see it the same with the Virgin Mary, and we can see it with after that with everything else. Then Horus tries to revenge or take revenge for the death or for the tragic death of his father and the murder of his father. So he gets into fight with Set. So Horus is supposed to be the good one now, because he is the offspring of Osiris, who seems to think that he holds or he has a monopoly over the truth, and he has got right to avenge the death of his father and restore law and order and all of that. And Set is the bad guy, and therefore he has to have this struggle with him in the hope that he will win. But should he win, I have a book in Arabic, and I'm hoping that I will have the time to rewrite it in English. It's called "Why Did Horus Lose His Eye?" Because this is a very important concept in ancient Egyptian philosophy and understanding our reading of the story or of the myth. If we look at Horus, no one has got monopoly over the truth. He is youth, he is impulsive, he is young, he doesn't know, and even if he wins the battle, would that eradicate evil? That's the question. The same with Set. Set is wicked, conspiratorial, but is he all bad? Because he's the other side of the coin, as we said. He's the shadow. He is the dark side of humanity, as it were, but he's necessary for humanity. So the one who intervenes to help the situation, because during the fight, Horus loses his eye. And then Thoth intervenes and restores his eye. And that's why the Eye of Horus, and you probably noticed that I'm wearing the Eye of Horus, it became synonymous with healing and recollection and integration. It actually means integrity in hieroglyph in the Egyptian language. So he had to replace his outer sight with an inner sight or the inside. And of course, we all are being a psychiatrist and Jung and all that, all the therapeutic maneuvers that we use are supposed to instill insight, or they are called insight-giving psychotherapists. And that is the healing that we are all looking for. So without that, he wouldn't have been able to continue the struggle. But having said that, the struggle didn't end in any one of them winning the battle. They actually reconciled, and this is the beauty, because there is also a description of Thoth saying he's the one who makes discord into harmony. So that is important, and this is a picture that I think it sums up the notion of the Hermetic or the Egyptian, the overall Egyptian philosophy, which is without integration, without reconciliation, and the marriage of opposing forces or contraries, we cannot maintain life, because it shows Horus and Set. They are tying the two branches of the Nile like Habi, and they are putting their feet on the kind of the trachea, and it shows that we cannot breathe. The country cannot live or breathe without achieving this kind of harmony between fighting factions. So that is why Thoth is about a consciousness that is outer and inner, but combined and integrated. And when he became Hermes, Hermes has got this symbol, the caduceus, which, as we can see, they are intertwined snakes, two snakes, and in the end there are two wings, which is again the union of heaven and earth, because the snakes are earthly creatures and the wings belong to birds that fly up in the sky. So they are actually heavenly creatures. So it is the integration, this caduceus, is supposed to be representing the integration. And as you can see in this beautiful Thoth picture, he is pouring the Ankh, which is the symbol of life. So there is no life without integration. When we come to the Hermetic mythology, again, I mean, just to sum up that again, the Ogdoad, the 4 female and 4 male are united, and that's the marriage of the contraries. So out of the Heliopolitan and the Hermopolitan mythology, we have this identification of the integrated soul with the divine savior. This is a very complicated mythical scene, but it shows the Ogdoads. So they're supposed to be the marriage of the opposing forces or the contraries. But then up there is the symbol of Osiris as a column, as the Jed. And that means the permanent beauty or the permanently renewed one. and revitalized one. So that's how the two myths are united, and that's why when we manage to control or to get our soul to identify its struggling forces and combine these struggling forces into some kind of unity, we identify with the divine one, and we elevate ourselves to a higher plane. So that is the mythological side. We come now to the Hermetic philosophical side. The Hermetic philosophical side, there are so many books that it's not only the Hermetica, but of course the Hermetica is the most famous one. Each one of those books have got a message to humanity. You cannot go in depth into each one of them. We have the Emerald Tablet, and that's about alchemical methods, and alchemy is about transformation and about metamorphosis of the self, and the ability again to combine and unite and become a united formula of the self, not a divided formula. And then we have the Book of Thought, and the Book of Thought is actually a dialogue between one who is supposed to be taught, and he is the lover of knowledge, with someone, a student, who is supposed to be the seeker of knowledge. So it is all about our love to know and the seeking of this knowledge. These are all stages in the development of the self and the self-awareness. And sorry about the picture of the Book of Thought. I don't know why sometimes it comes out reversed like this. Then we have the Gnostic manuscripts that were found in the library of Nag Hammadi, and showed that the Hermetic philosophy is ancient. And as I mentioned in the philosophical things and the coffin text and everything, it seems that all what became known as Hermetic is actually echoes of what was before in mythological Egyptian thinking, and in the way the ancient Egyptians thought of themselves and their environment. But it is about self-gnosis, and self-gnosis is self-knowledge. So we have self-alchemy, we have love of knowledge and seeking knowledge, and then we have self-gnosis. And then in the end, we have in the Hermetica, the self-integration and unification, which is the ultimate awareness. Come to Jung and we look into the Hermetic Jung, again we have the alchemy and the collective unconscious, which actually shows that through alchemy we can connect these symbols that are those archetypes that are found in our unconscious. And then we have the Gnostic Jung, which is again, he uses the same archetypes as metaphors or symbols that we need to decipher to seek knowledge and gain knowledge. And then we have the psychology and alchemy, which is about the transformation. And in the end, the undiscovered self, which is the ultimate end of this process. So if we can go through Jung, we'll find that we have all these stages of the development of self-awareness or self-consciousness, the healthy self-consciousness, the archetypal unconscious and mythology, from which we get Gnostic symbols of a prefigured self, a self that is not yet self, which is the non-being, that is still preformed being. And then we have the gnosis, or the psychological knowledge, that is derived from the unconscious through active imagination. And we have all this through dreams, whatever, paintings, art. There's so many things that can allow us to derive knowledge through the unconscious. And then within the field of alchemy, we have the possibility of the union of all these prefigured elements of the unconscious with the conscious, so we can unite both again. Individuation then is the identification with the Gnostic savior or the divine self. That's a higher level than the union. So we have at the beginning an attempt, several steps to understand what is unconscious, and then unite the unconscious with the conscious, and to reach the union of the beginning. And then we go higher in the development of the self to identify with the divine self, or the ultimate higher self, which is individuation, or it can be like the Übermensch of Nietzsche, or the Gibbserian self, that everything is integrated. So again, to recap, these are the circles that show the development of the self and the self-consciousness. Mythology as a psychic substrate of the unconscious, and gnosis, active imagination, alchemy as union, individuation, which is the identification with the Gnostic savior. So then,
over 10.
Yeah, it is. It says here, Jung says, only this reality was not physical. It's about alchemy. He's talking about alchemy, that it happens, but it's not in a physical sense, in a psychological sense. And again, he talks about individuation as a transformational process, integrating the conscious with the personal and collective unconscious. And here has symbols of transformation, which are the archetypes and the Gnostic symbols. And then he says the self, I don't know, functions as opposing, as opposites, and thus constitutes the most immediate experience of the divine, which it is psychologically possible to imagine, which is really, again, the combining of the opposing forces. The undiscovered self, Jung says, looking outward has got now to be turned into looking into oneself. Discovering yourself provides you with all you are, were meant to be, and all you are living from and for. So this is, again, the ultimate self that we are all searching for, even if we have degrees of awareness of our inner life and our inner self, our own unconscious. We manage to get some kind of integration between what is conscious and what is unconscious. But the differentiated self, the individuated self, is still the undiscovered self that we continually search for, because it is a higher form of self. So to reach this kind of individual uniqueness, both Hermetic and Jungian, in the Hermetica, it says the human race, for example, shares a common universal form by which we know that a man is a man, yet all human beings have a distinctly different particular form, of which no two are entirely alike. And Jung says the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Again, in the Hermetica, it says, listen, every human heart, immerse yourself in mind, and recognize the purpose of your birth. And Jung says, as far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light of meaning in the darkness of mere being. And beautiful quote that I really have all the time and tell people all about. I'm not what happened to me. I'm what I choose to become, which is, I think, it gives you the freedom to evolve and to become, and and there is no limit to the levels you can ascend. Takes us to Hermopolis. Hermopolis is the place to be. This is an article that I wrote for a spiritual bookshop that's very old in London. It's called Watkins, and the magazine is called Body, Mind, and Soul. And it says Hermopolis, the place to be. And I will add, it is also the place to become. So we are looking at it as a kind of, is this Hermopolis first? It is actually in Middle Egypt. It is the same distance from Cairo. It's about 300 kilometers from Cairo. It's about 300 kilometers from Luxor, a little bit more or less. And it is a unique area because it is connected also to other sites that are important. Hermopolis has got two sites. One is Ashmunin, which is the ancient city of life where the scribes worked and produced thought and ideas, and Tun al-Gabal, where those scribes and writers are buried. But on the other side of the Nile, we have El Amarna, which is the city of the Rosicrucians and the city of Akhenaten and his beautiful wife, Nefertiti. And people sometimes think that Amarna is important. It might be important, but its importance is derived from the fact that it is in close proximity to ancient Hermopolis. And I don't really think that Akhenaten chose the site, or the site was chosen for him by his father accidentally. It was a premeditated and calculated thing. So Hermopolis lies in a county in ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, there were 42 counties, which are really like governorates. And this was the county number 15, and was called the county of Winnet. The word Winnet in hieroglyph means rabbit or hare. And this rabbit is also the symbol of being, which is funny. So it actually, in a way, it says this is the place that brings goodness into being. We can see that the rabbit here is encircled with the Ouroboros, and we know that Jung was interested in the Ouroboros, and we will mention that in a minute. But why is that? It shows the being is surrounded by a potential space. It's the space of becoming, and the Ouroboros that lives on itself is constantly renewed. So it says here again, that is a saying from hymn and prayer and songs, ancient Egyptian literature. "O thought, take me to Hermopolis, to the joyous city, where it is pleasant to live, to the well for one who thirsts in the desert, who seeks knowledge, for the one who is constantly seeking knowledge." And the word joyous is, and the way I define it in my book, and it's actually, it's not happiness and it's not pleasure. It is the excitement of possibilities. It is the excitement about the future, that the future has within it hidden potentialities. There is a promise which I call the Hermetic promise, that comes out of the knowledge that you seek, and that gives hope that becoming is possible, and constantly becoming is man's existential duty in a way. This is what Jung says. It is said of the Ouroboros that slays himself and brings himself to life, fertilizes himself, and gives birth to himself. And the same is saying, in a way, in the Book of the Dead or the Book of Coming Forth by Day, to dwell in Winnet, in Hermopolis, means to live renewed, revitalized, and to be forever reborn. So this is the Hermopolis that I created in the middle of the desert. It's actually between rural and desert landscape, and it is in close proximity again to Hermopolis West, which is Tun al-Gabal, where the scribes that served in Ashmonin or Hermopolis lived and worked and produced ideas. I'm using here the saying by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote The Little Prince, and it is a book called Wisdom of the Sands. And it is actually written at the entrance to the place, and you will see it, Liz. Our temple will draw them to it like a magnet, and in its silence they will search their souls and find themselves. So this is the idea. It is really like, yeah, it is a milieu, in an environment, a space for finding yourself, discovering yourself, recreating yourself. So it's self-cultivation. So it is a space for self-cultivation. It consists of an organic farm and ecological hospitality center and a library or a cultural space. And there are many outdoor as well, spaces for performances and for activities, etc. And this is Carl Jung studio. And I think I will reserve it for Liz when she comes in October. And this is what New Hermopolis, which is this cultivating center, self-cultivating center, aims for. Educational or learning platform for ancient philosophies, as well as it designed a space to bring all that people who feel that they belong to these concepts and this philosophical heritage, and to enable us to reach this kind of global ecological citizenship when our individuals are integrated with the universe. It is heritage for development, a social initiative as a mundane aim, but it is an honorable aim because it means or it aims to harness the heritage of this region towards its cultural and economic regeneration. These are some of the activities that we do or we did. And this is again our t-shirt, which says being is becoming or being as becoming. The concept of self-cultivation that I'm referring to New Hermopolis as a kind of a space for self-cultivation sees the act of living as an ongoing work of art where the individual fundamentally becomes the creative master and the artist of himself. And this is our lotus pond. So again, the lotus, we learn a lot from the lotus because it is a fascinating flower. It says here in the book of Coming Forth by Day, that is wrongly known as the Book of the Dead. The spell is called Being Transformed into a Lotus, again about alchemical transformation. So you see yourself as a lotus. It says, I'm this lotus, which went forth from the sunshine. I have descended that I may ascend to seek thee. I am the pure who issued from the mud or from fen. And these are two scenes or two pictures from the lotus pond. This when it is blooming, and this is when it is sleepy, because it is a funny kind of flower. It closes itself on itself by sunset, and goes deep in the water to the extent that you don't see any sign of it. And by dawn and sunrise, it starts to emerge again. So it is like a movement coming from stillness or inertia, and beauty coming from ugliness because it grows in the mud. And it is beauty out of ugliness, but it's also ascendancy out of, of being buried down and seeking the sunshine or seeking the divine one. That is my book that Liz kindly referred to. Again, I'm talking about Jung. I say influenced by the Hermetic idea. Jung was able to see that the conflicting divisions of our world today as mirroring the psychological chaos within our souls. To resolve these divisions, we need to learn how to reconcile and integrate those chaotic fragments and achieve the cohesion and the oneness of the self and the world. So it is seeking the oneness that we started with before the one became two and the conflicts and strife started. And we conclude by saying of Carl Jung saying, if only worldwide consciousness could arise, that all division and all fission are due to the splitting of opposites of the psyche, then we should know where to begin. Thank you very much. I finished.
All right, thank you very much. This was a really wonderful whirlwind tour through psychological history. I appreciate your going all the way back to the ancient Egyptian myths and pulling them forward to show us that there really does exist the possibility of a worldview that is grounded in the balancing of opposites. And our worldview seems to have flown in a very different direction, flown towards separation and separateness. So I'll start off the discussion by asking,
Lisa, could I ask if we could get back to
oh
seeing
yeah,
everyone?
could you stop share, Mervat? Just
I'm trying to get myself back on
okay.
it, but I don't know how. Again.
Hang
Yeah.
on. Let me see if I can do it here.
Yeah.
No.
No?
Just move your cursor around the screen and something should pop up.
I will try to, yeah. Can you get the taskbar that was there, because I can actually reduce this. I can get back where are we? Now it disappeared. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get there. Okay.
No, not that one. That's in your. Look down towards the bottom. Move your cursor towards the bottom of your screen. Something should pop up that says stop share.
No,
No.
it's not showing here.
Let me see if I can do it. Oh, here I can do it. Well, I thought I could.
It's funny because normally there is a kind of taskbar that
there's
a
oh,
yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, okay.
It just takes a little time. We've got a little time delay.
Well, it's good that we got that far.
Well, actually, I will open it up to other people if somebody else wants to start off the discussion.
I have a question about, is there a particular reason you chose to highlight the undiscovered self, Jung's essay called The Undiscovered Self? Was that an essay that pulled you in, or you felt was important for you when you read it? I mean, Jung wrote lots of things about this
Yeah.
topic, and it's a beautiful essay. I'm just curious as to whether you had a personal connection to that particular essay.
All the ones that I actually, it's not only on all the ones that I call pioneers of existence in my book, are the ones that got an idea about the future self, about being and becoming. And I talk about and talked about the potentialities within the self. So that's why it's not only unique to Jung that I did that. I even mentioned in the book that Jung is probably the most hermetic of all the thinkers I'm talking about, but he's known for the archetypes, the alchemy, and the Gnostic manuscripts, all these things. But the one I'm interested in is the existential Jung. And the existential Jung is the one that's about what to make out of our own existence. And his code, that's why I said it's the code that I use and I tell people about. It's not what I am, it's what I choose to become. It's because, and it's fascinating because most of the ones that I'm using, all the people that I'm calling pioneers of existence, being philosophers or psychoanalysts, they went through the savage circumstances of the war, and with Jung, that was his last book, and I believe that it wasn't published in his lifetime. So it is. It actually was the product of real suffering, and it's product of the world is coming almost to an end. So he used all the ideas he collated from previously, be it alchemy, be it gnosis, be it all these things, metaphors, symbols, archetypes, into how you discover yourself, how you make a self out of yourself, that you have a uniqueness, you have the individuality within you, which is differentiation. Don't become one of the herd. That was actually, and that is actually on a personal level. This is what I subscribe to and what I try to. I call myself an existential psychoanalyst or therapist. So I'm fascinated by the idea of the potential being and this continuous transformation and elevation of the soul through knowledge, through gnosis. That but the more you know yourself, the more you become.
Okay, thanks. I have one more question, which is, to what extent are the people who are living in Egypt reconnecting to the message that you're presenting around Hermopolis, around the mythological roots of their own culture?
That's a fascinating question, but I am always asked this question. But I try to say that I'm not connecting with the local people on that level, because unfortunately it is an area that has been marginalized and neglected for so many years. But it also, funnily enough, it is as it was in the past, the land of reconciliation and dialogue. it has become now a kind of the land of fictional strife and some extremist thought and fundamentalism. We all live in that because extremism, we live in subcultures of extremism. And this part of Egypt has got so many Christians who became also extremists, unfortunately. So we have this kind of a split, and which I personally didn't live in. I lived in a better time. So years ago, Egypt was different. Egypt of my childhood no longer exists. But this philosophy is helping me to reach out to the people there in a kind of a language that serves them and connects with them, which is how this project helps to develop the area. And through it, they gain a kind of pride and appreciation of what they have. And also they realize that ideas of so-called tolerance and acceptance of the other and all these things are not imported. They are homegrown. So you can through that, especially through creativity, and that's why my interest of being and becoming is that human potential is endless, and this is space as self-cultivation. And you won't believe that. I mean, I have something called Thoughts Festival every year, and the kids that come with their parents and their families, and they perform things for the first time there. And the families are so proud, and then it became almost like, you know, more important than religious feasts and more important than anything. They wait for it and they dress up for it, and they compete. So there are certain things that you can do on a very on a kind of grassroots and mundane level that will convey the message, but you don't have to talk the language I'm talking now to the people. They will realize that there is a degree of inner wisdom in many people, especially the ones who didn't go to universities. the native ones, there is actually inner wisdom. And they appreciate things more than the ones who are educated. The ones who are educated are superficial, and they are not interested. They also sometimes look down upon their own heritage because they don't understand that it has so much to offer. But my interest is in the grassroots and also in the children and in offering something different. But my higher interest is in redeveloping or developing this land that was very alive in ancient times, and it produced the message for humanity at large. Because the division, the extremism, the difficulties, the struggles, the dehumanization, all these things are now diseases that we are all afflicted by. And we are all living also very superficially, and we are all living momentarily, and we're all materialistic. So in some ways, there are two planes to my message. One is to help. It's almost like helping the plant by irrigating it or watering it. But at the same time, when someone sees beauty, then they will start asking other questions, and also the ones that belong to the idea and to the philosophy. They also can see this place as their own place. So it is a global village. It is supposed to be helping humanity globally. It's not. Egypt is the birthplace. It's the archetypes, but it is up to us to use that or understand the roots of our existence and then make something beautiful out of it. So that is.
Thank you so much.
It seems that you're living the philosophy that you're teaching, that you actually have gone through the transition from living from to living for. And
Absolutely. Yeah, carry on, Liz. I mean, yeah, quite a lot of people feel, and you probably will read it in my book, that I inhabited this history. It became my home. It was very useful in helping me in difficult times. It actually gave me opportunity of overcoming myself.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I'm living for a higher purpose. It is, I mean, Nietzsche has got this saying that if you know the why of your existence, you can put up with anyhow. And that's exactly, you see, because I'm living beyond myself, because I'm living for something higher than myself. It is transcendence. And it is also, I am in the generative phase, as Erik Erikson says. I mean, I'm in the time. Luckily enough, I was privileged to have been properly educated and gaining knowledge and degrees and expertise and going higher up in my career and everything. All of that was actually leading to a person that can go beyond that person and use this cumulative knowledge to help others. Because also I hated the idea. I mean, even when I was a psychiatrist, I always called myself social psychiatrist or cultural psychiatrist. Even I called myself in my younger years political psychiatrist, when I thought that things can be helped by politics, which are not. Then you become more philosophical, and you reach out for philosophies that are transformative. And the idea is to get New Hermopolis to become an environment for transformation, not only for the Egyptians, but for everybody. So it is a space for self-cultivation and for healing. And healing in a wider sense, because we all require healing. And constantly, this philosophy constantly helping me. Even when things go wrong, it comes to me as a kind of a salvation. And this is identification with the divine savior. This is the idea of, because the divine here, I mean, be it Osiris or being Christ or being whatever, it is actually the one who was able to transcend himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a hard step to make. The ego does not like that
Exactly. But in a way, I divorced myself from my ego long time ago, which is good because, I mean, for instance, I am. People seem to think that I may have lots of people and I'm in the media, or people talk about me or about what I achieved. No, no, no. I am in a way ignored, marginalized. Um, no one ever thinks of nominating me for awards or anything like that. Although what I've done to the country, probably far more than anybody else. But I was never looking for that. I mean, in fact, even my main concern at the moment and my main worry is what will become of what I created when I'm gone. So the life of what has been created has to transcend the person who created it. As I transcended myself in creating it, it has to transcend the creator and become in service for its mission. And that is the reason why we're doing something like the conference and why I'm doing lectures and other, because I really want stakeholders. I want people who will feel that they belong, that it is a space for multiple belonging. It's not this Mervat who created this space. It's beyond me. It is not something that I created it for personal satisfaction. It has nothing to do with, in fact, all it did, it actually brought about agony and the struggle all along. Yeah, it's anguish, but this is it. This is and that's why words like when a strife didn't start to denote life. This is exactly that you have, again, going to Nietzsche, it's torment. You have to be tormented. You have to go into the fire to become something, to become gold. I mean, that's the idea. And you have to put up with that. You don't become gold, but at least in the process, you are getting closer to becoming something useful, beautiful, precious, helpful, of service. This is what is the everlasting person, the one who is a giver or able to get in. So yes, I'm living it totally. And I feel privileged that somehow I delved into it deeply, and it helped me on a personal level throughout several stages. And the more I learn, the more I feel better about myself and better about the world. And I don't expect things, because it is sufficient in itself.
Mm-hmm. David, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I'm so honored to have been a part of your audience, and I wanted to ask you a question about books like the Corpus Hermeticum and other documents of that age that you've spoken about, and whether they were written in an ancient form of Arabic, maybe Aramaic, and whether those texts are available in that more original form than our English translations and our modern Egyptian translations and so forth.
Yes, some are. For instance, if we go to the Book of Thought, that was only discovered, or is fragments, and the fragments are available in many museums all over the world. There is in England, and there is in Berlin, and there are many museums have got fragments from the Book of Thought, which is about seeking knowledge from someone who loves knowledge. So that is written in it's not Arabic, because Arabic and the Arabs are also invaders like anyone else. So what we had was the Egyptian language, which is written in hieroglyphs, and then of course the hieroglyphic writing went through stages of development, hieratic and then demotic, and then finally Coptic, and then Greek. So many of the documents were found in Greek, and that's why the Hermetica, for instance, because the manuscripts that were recovered in Alexandria were primarily written in Greek. So for a long time, people thought that the Hermetica was a Greek philosophy, but it wasn't until the discovery of Nag Hammadi manuscripts, which are the Coptic manuscripts, and the Coptic manuscripts are many. Some are in Coptic; they are all found in their original form. The ones that have been salvaged from so they are in Coptic. And Coptic is alive and well, so there are many experts in Coptic, and they are found in the Coptic Museum in Cairo and also in the British Museum. So there are manuscripts, and there is actually Gnostic manuscripts in Oxford, for instance, kept as well in a particular. So, in their original form, some are there, but they are all fragments. And the beauty about it, and even things that are not Hermetic or not designated as Hermetic, like the Book of the Two Ways and the Book of Coffins, they actually refer. I mean, the Book of Coffins, for instance, referred to Hermes Trismegistus, and that was, or twice great, which was really before even the Hermetica was known. So that was discovered a long time before, and deciphering it was only recent. So people all the time are finding out that this Hermetic things go back to the original thought. That is the reason why I'm talking about mythology and mythological ideas, because those mythological thoughts informed the philosophy. The philosophy is actually the text of this mythology, and it's almost really talking about it. I mean, when we look on something like the transformation of the lotus in the Book of the Dead or Coming Forth by Day, we find that it's very poetic, and yet it is very mythological, because and it's very philosophical. So it's the whole thing coming. They are all connected, and that's the beauty again about ancient Egypt, that you cannot separate mythology, and Greek as well. Greek mythology is supposed to give philosophical dimensions and metaphorical dimensions. The only beauty about our, if we mention Gibbs, metaphorical age, is that and mythical age, and how we need to integrate that into the new consciousness, is that it offers a lot. We shouldn't discard it. It is not that you, by evolving, you get rid of these initial stages. These initial stages, they are not stages. They are actually into your being. They are integrated in your own being.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
It wasn't until I think it was something you wrote, or maybe something I read recently, that I finally got a clue about the meaning of the Gnostic, the title of the Gnostic text, Discourse on the Eighth and the Ninth. It's really about the Ogdoad and the Aeneid. And it was like, that makes sense now. I could never understand what the eighth and the ninth referred to.
Exactly. Yeah, that is that's exactly. I mean, you hit it on the head. Yeah. So that's they are all connected. They are all connected, and they need to be read together. We are far from reading ancient Egypt conceptually. We are far from reading it as an integrated whole. We look at it as a kind of bits and pieces that are chronologically related to certain dates. And the dates is really about the dates of discovering things, right, or translating things, but they don't give an idea when these things were written, and also things that were written in Egypt several times. The Book of the Dead, for instance, there are versions that go to the Old Kingdom or Middle Kingdom, but there are also that go back to the Modern and the Late Kingdoms. So it's people use this in different versions. So we cannot actually say the Book of the Dead, this is a recent thing, and the Book of Coffins, that is an earlier one. No, they are all connected, and they are all different ways of expressing almost the same thing.
Mervat, I noted that you said that the Book of the Dead actually should be translated in a different way, right? The title.
Yes. Yeah.
What was the
day This is the actual translation of
Yeah.
it. That
Because a
initially,
similar thing exists for the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's really the translation of the words that form that do not say the Book of the Dead. It says
yeah,
it's liberation through hearing is the
well,
direct translation.
it is a direct translation. The direct translation or the literal translation is actually coming forth by day, but because
Okay.
it's found with the mummies in burial chambers, so it would.
Okay.
And most of these books, including the coffin, the Book of Coffins, and the Book of Two Ways, and everything, were found with the dead, with coffins. So they are all called the books of the underworld or the other world. So, but for the Egyptians, life and death again was one and the same thing, because death for the Egyptians occurs every day, and resurrection happens every morning. And that's why being and becoming is every morning. And that's why the word scarab means becoming, literally means becoming. So in fact, because the sun continues to rise every day, so and you can rise again, like the lotus and like the sun, and like they are all they are all symbolic, and they are all metaphorical. And if you treat yourself as a kind of, or you treat your life as living through symbolism, it opens life for you. You become less rigid, you become less extreme, you don't hold it's either or. It's fascinating, because it's the way it's very much like art. Someone can look at Picasso and sees nothing, and other one can see amazing things in it, and it's that's the beauty of it.
John is standing amongst his art right now.
Hmm?
John Dotson is standing amongst his art right now.
Oh well. We hope to welcome you all to Egypt one day. Someday. Yeah.
Is that a cue, Lisa?
Yeah.
A nice picture as well in the back. You.
These are from Colombia.
No, not you, Lisa.
Oh.
It's Dave. No, it's John.
Yeah.
John has got.
Eva also has a figure there.
Yeah. What do you have, Lisa? What do you have, Lisa? Chef has got a hermetic one.
This is early writing from Colombia on the walls in Colombia, and it's just struck me that early writing symbols are so similar around the world. Well, at least in the Americas, you can find very similar symbols in the southwestern parts of the United States. I'm not sure about up in your neck of the woods, David. Do you have petroglyphs up in the Vancouver area?
I think so. And I've witnessed it myself in Arizona, of course. And it's this original humanity that you're talking about, that are in these languages and myths.
Yeah, and Thoth being the god of writing, it's very dear. I'm sorry, John, did I cut you off? What were you starting to say?
I don't know. I had to start all over. I don't know where I was. There are so many points of departure, Mervat, with your being with us today. So thank you for joining us from London today. And there are two major points of departure that occur to me to connect. The first is very personal, and then the second would be more general, and I'll try to get them both out efficiently. One is I have an atavistic experience of Egyptian mythology, meaning all my life I have felt patterns that I came to recognize and realize were Egyptian. I can give you one very specific example. Is my audio okay? Yeah, okay. And I have a whole list here that I could ask you about, but we can't do that. But the one that I want to ask about, to see if I pronounced this correctly, is Aker. A-K-E-R. Often, I don't know.
Yes, well, yeah. Aker, yeah.
Aker. Okay, very good. Thank you. That's the root of the word akerantos, by the way, for some of you. Aker. And the symbol of the god is the disc, and then the two lions facing in opposite directions.
Yes, yeah.
And that is the god, symbolic. Yeah.
Yes, it is a kind of the god of time, because the ancient Egyptians had very complicated notion of time. There is a kind of permanent longitudinal time that very much like the ones we are using now. And there is the circular time, which of course about the eternal return and the circularity of things, that things will keep coming back. And Aker actually symbolizes yesterday and tomorrow. And between them is the disk of the sun. There are the two lines of yesterday and tomorrow, and between them is the disk of the sun. Because contrary to what the recent self-help talk tell you about living for the present moment and all that, the Egyptians didn't recognize present, because by the time I finish my talk, what I talked becomes past. So they realized that this is a very fleeting, ungraspable moment, the present. So the only two times that we have is yesterday and tomorrow. And that is the reason, that's again, it feeds into the futuristic look of the Egyptian philosophy, that you live for tomorrow, you live for posterity, you don't live for today, which is again a kind of very, very different from the materialistic, the here and now that we emphasize on. You live because you are a tool or an instrument to keep life going, because this is your role in life. You are you are here to feed into life itself, and you become alive by making life alive, because you will, in some ways, which again connects with the idea of might, by doing things to the earth, by doing things to your fellow humans, you engrave yourself in the collective memory. So people will always remember you if you play the part in making life alive.
Did you say Mott?
Yes.
Yes, that I've been working with Mott lately, but I'm not going to follow through on that.
Yeah.
What I'm drawn to is I have been drawn in my spine to Aker in the emergence of consciousness, and you've spoken about that today. You started with that. And then you also then with the lotus coming into the day, and you just said that as a title for the for the Book of the Dead, as it were. But I'm pondering the very earliest human consciousness of what you've just said. I mean, for us, we will think, okay, well, there was yesterday and tomorrow. But when did human beings first carry forth an awareness that there was a yesterday and there is a tomorrow? This is a very profound mystery. I'm still completely spellbound by it, and by that symbol. The symbol seems to be manifesting the basic human consciousness.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree, but again, it is not. You know, it's not a materialistic consciousness. It is actually a profound inner consciousness, because you know, and I'm fascinated by your question because it's a beautiful question. Not that I have an answer to, but I guess it is death that informed the Egyptians of the fact that how consciousness developed. So that's because they don't come back, but they made them come back. And there are so much in that in the ancient Egyptian literature, not only in mythology or the books of the afterlife or anything like that. Is the fact that they don't come back, but they eternalize themselves. So they lived for tomorrow. That's why they made sure that they engraved their burial sites. They made pictures. They wrote on the walls of it. Writing. If you write, I mean, it's amazing. There is a saying as well, which I really love. It says, "Yesterday comes back to us in writing." So the notion of yesterday, or the awareness that there was a yesterday, came back to them through writing. And I guess it is death. They didn't regard death as a final moment. So that's why there had to be yesterday and tomorrow. And in fact, you've given me a very interesting element of consciousness that's through Acker. That's actually, yes, it is that you become aware only through the past that there must be a tomorrow. And they ensured that through a very detailed process, not only the mummification, but I think it's through art and writing. I call the tombs of the ancient Egyptians, they are mausoleum of the word. They made the word alive. They continue to live through the word, and still there is a definition of how you can eternalize yourself, or living by extension despite you being not here, which in fact in creating works of art, the Egyptians said that, or by writing. And the third thing is by giving birth to children. Yeah, but the first one was by creating a monument or sculpting, or painting, or doing anything, and writing was actually the. So I actually think the connection between yesterday and tomorrow in the awareness of the first man came to him through death, and because
you see this. Don't you see this in earlier humanity? I mean, the grave sites of, that date back 10, 20,000 years, you know, these are the bodies are arranged in a particular shape, form. There are objects that they had with them that they're buried with. All of those are indicators that there's a thinking about death and after death, I think.
Thinking about the afterlife. In
Yeah.
fact, then there are certain things like, you know, I mean, you have, which I compare it to China. China, they have this, the terracotta army, for instance, that they played with the dead. The Egyptians have those Shaktis that are there all the time. They are the servants and the farmers. So they realize that life doesn't end here. They will be farming in the afterlife, and they need to have farmers with them to cultivate the land. So it is this notion that life doesn't end. So,
Well, and I'll take a leap and say, I mean, there are certain animals that when they're approaching death, their behavior changes. You know, I think of elephants, right? Elephants go to a particular place to die. So there's consciousness. There's a sense of knowing that the end is coming and we have to go to the place of dying. I would say there is a forethought.
Yeah, I agree. But they had a kind of a whole gamut of things that will ensure life by extension, is what you have written, what you have created, the kind of the social solidarity that you had in your life, so you will exist in the memory. So it was not only tangible things, it was actually, they were also interested in the intangible things, which is continuing to live in the memory of others, which is a very important thing for the Egyptians. Till now, even the ones they say people will always remember you. That's in the Egyptian saying, when you do something good, you will never die because people will always remember you. This is modern Egyptians. They continue to, so that's that no good work is ever wasted, because you will live in the collective memory. And that is which is again is finding a role for humanity despite death, and in spite of death, that they are alive. They are alive through the good deeds that they did. They are alive through the literary works. They are alive through art. They are alive. They haven't died. Actually, the least was reproduction. The least of the thing of importance was reproduction. Yeah, which we continue just to live through reproduction, not production and creation. So that's and their creative endeavors continue to be relevant to humanity till now, because that is how we can find our own archetypes, how we can find our own symbols, how we can find, the reason that what is the meaning of life. They found the meaning of life. I think it is just what the Egyptians did to humanity is to conquer death. Metaphorically, of course.
And the creative urge happens in communion with the divine self that we are striving towards in the individuation process.
Absolutely, and there is also a very nice saying in the book of Coming Forth by Day, or the Book of the Dead, that says, use your brush and use your paint and make a picture or something like that. I can't remember the exact words. And when Ra sees what you have done, he will recognize you as one of them, one of the gods. So it is again the first acknowledgement that creative work is a kind of partnership with the gods. So it is that you have a divine self that is creative, and so that's again very beautiful, and it shows that by beautifying things, you are actually trying to mimic the beauty. Again, as above, so below. So you are really cultivating the land, beautifying the land, doing things good there. So you are trying to reach out for your heavenly part, because after all, it's heaven and earth and give and note, and they were separated despite the love. So in each one of us have got that part. So
yeah. Eva, did you want to say something?
I had a historical question, which well, I have two things I wanted to say. One is that how far back does you've been laying it out in terms of history, but how far back does really Hermeticism go historically? I know.
Again, you can never tell, but it can actually go back to even things like the pyramid text, which is the first book. The pyramid text comes with the time of writing. It's the first book actually in history, the pyramid text, and you will find a lot of the Hermetic notions described in the pyramid text. So that's the earliest, right?
And how far back would you say that might be?
We will say about 5,000 years at least. Yeah,
at least.
Yeah,
Not longer. Not longer.
Yeah, before that it will be prehistoric things, but you can make up what you think from pieces of art or the symbolism. I mean, when you have, which is becoming really an obsession of mine these days, but I don't have time for it, how the Egyptians animated the inanimate objects. That you have a ball, and in fact it is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I actually think it's one of the masterpieces. Also, it is prehistoric, with 2 feet. It is a pottery ball and has 2 feet. So after all, the ball is about food, about, it is a container of something. And if it has feet, it means that it can walk to you. It's about giving and offering. So the art of giving, to be in a way immortalized in this kind of piece of art, makes it actually amazing, because it is how the abstract can, and that's very early on. That's we're talking about Nagada cultures, and all that is thousands of years prior to the dynasties, the dynastic Egypt, when they have a kind of a skeleton with 2 legs, and pouring water. Again, is the same thing. When you have a tree, and coming out of the tree is a woman, which is the sycamore tree, and coming out of this and giving food and water as well. So the act of giving and the act of offering has been connected with inanimate objects as well. So they have a life. So I can see that there are plenty of things that you can deduce from prehistoric objects.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the second, this wasn't so much a question, but the second thing, because it was many, many years ago, I was traveling to Moab and to Arches in Utah, and it's all gray and brown desert. And then suddenly you get to Arches. I don't know if you've been there, and there are these giant, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet high, that look like they're hieroglyphs, that the gods had come down and imprinted these hieroglyphs onto these rocks. And it was just the most astonishing thing, because it felt like being in an ancient place such as Egypt, being there. And I thought, I'll never forget that experience. And I've been back numerous times, not now in a long time, but that said, oh, the gods were here. And they printed these hieroglyphs, I don't know, I can't read them, into the rocks. It was like the gods themselves. And it felt very Egyptian, ancient. And yeah.
So I'm sure that ancient civilizations in general shared quite a lot of things in common. And it's all connected with the finality of life and how to outlive death, how to make a life for yourself after death. So it's and it's the same question, and still man tries to find an answer to that, because we're all, unfortunately, this is our destiny, our fate, that one day we will vanish. But are we going to vanish? This is the lessons that we have from ancient cultures and ancient civilizations, that by making life alive, you are alive. And that helps you because it is just, you're useful by becoming useful. Otherwise, you are really a mass of protoplasm or something that is like a worm and like anything else. So this you have to have a purpose, you have to have a case, you have to have a reason, and that is actually the inner consciousness. That is the individuation. That is how you become a differentiated soul or self from the herd, by having something much bigger than the mundane of eating and drinking and having fun or whatever. Yeah.
I liked the way you put it earlier. I think you said finding meaning or having meaning within dark being. It's like that meaning is what animates just, unconsciousness. So I imagine that's one of the intentions behind the new Hermopolis, is to enable people to either individually or collectively, because you like to have groups there, find their higher purpose, their something greater than themselves, to give one's life to. I've been working with that, in my own life for many years. My higher purpose has to do with transforming language, and in finding Jung's individuation process, and knowing the intimate connection between language and consciousness. My big question now is how can we enable language to individuate? The language consciousness, conjunction. So anyhow, I'm kind of giving a little preview, but
Looking forward to reading the book as well. Yes, and congratulations for your book. And yes, it is an area, but it is much more difficult, is the connection between language and consciousness. It's a difficult area.
Yeah, I think what I really wanted to emphasize there, though, was the finding meaning, finding a purpose that is greater than oneself. And if there's anything, I was thinking about this the other day, if there's anything that I think modern society is missing, is being pushed to find a meaning greater than oneself that you can live for, not just live from, but live for. Just staying at home, binge watching Bridgerton or whatever does not give you that higher purpose, because you're not adding life to life.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, again, going to someone like Viktor Frankl, that I mention as well in my book, like he was a psychotherapist as well, and is existential one, and went through hell during the war. And when he was asked what is the meaning of life, he says to find meaning. Or to give life a meaning. So it's up to you, because it is all again, we can go back to the language. It's all on an abstract level, on a thinking level, because it doesn't have. And the beauty about Viktor Frankl, that he says that giving your life a meaning, he actually mentions things that could be very trivial. It could be living for a dog that you care for, that he's waiting for you to return because you are his friend and you are the one who nourishes him. So there are certain things that whatever makes your existence necessary. Yeah, if life of others somehow depend on you, and that's why you wouldn't have suicidal cases, a lot of them, unless they have postpartum depression or psychosis of suicide, because mothers have got this kind that they are not going to kill themselves because they know that their offspring need them. So this is something that is, if you are needed, it doesn't have to be a very grand thing. If what you created, the meaning you created, requires your existence to continue to exist. So what you care for, it could be anything that you care for, and your existence is necessary for it to continue. So, and if you die, it will vanish. And that's what keeps me alive. But at the same time, I know that it is coming, and that's why I want to extend that because even if I know that I have to continue to be alive for what I created, but what I created now requires something much more than me, because it is coming whether I like it or not. Yeah, but that is the whole idea, is that your existence is necessary for the existence of what you created. And that could be a very trivial thing. It doesn't have, or what appears to be trivial, because there isn't anything trivial. If you create anything, that's an act of creation. And that's the meaning in itself, that if it requires thriving and cultivation and continued care, that means that it is needed. It is something needed. So I think it is that is the meaning. The meaning is to see that your existence is necessary. It may not be sufficient, like in my case, but it is necessary for what you create, for the survival of what you created.
And that boils down to an understanding of the interconnectedness of all of life.
Yeah. And it is authenticity, being part of something that it's again about ecological citizenship. It can be, I mean, someone who cares for his garden so much. He has a purpose. He has a case. His garden depends on him. So that's and he's contributing to the life of life. And so there are so many. I mean, it is beautiful because philosophy, especially modern philosophy, has given, in some ways, bad and reductionist name to existential philosophies. And yet I think existential philosophies are very much in depth about human existence. It is true, or the nature of human being, but it also, I think, it has an affinity with the ancients, because it tries to strip down the existence and go to the basic and sees you are here, so you have to live. There's no cure for it. Actually, it says you are alive, no cure for it. Yeah, and how you treat that, the pain of existence, to make it a kind of a joyous activity, and the joyous activity, not pleasurable, joyous activity, which really, as I said, that there are hidden potentialities within that opens the doors for you, which is self-discovery.
So does anybody have any final thoughts or questions? Otherwise, I think we're just about at our 2 hours.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much, Mervat, for coming and for doing this. Yeah, and it's so timely because we're all struggling right now with the subject of meaning, and how to bring these opposites together at this time and find new life, because I think that is also emerging at this time. This incredible transformational time that we're living through. Yeah. And I think, one thing I often think that the image of this receiving in a bowl, and that we're giving, but also the receiving. There's that beautiful as above, so below cycling. Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes. Yeah, absolutely, Eva. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for recommending me to Lisa and making this happen. I'm glad and honored to be with you. And I hope that the rest of the group will enjoy the recording. And
we're very honored to have you here. And I look forward to I look forward to meeting you in person and giving you a big hug.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I mean, I am also honored very much to be with you, and I thank you. And thank you is not enough. And apologies again about the technological hiccup at the beginning, but I hope that I made up for it.
It's just a matter of who you're being It's not about making up. It was a lovely discussion, and I thank David and Jeff and Andrew and Eileen for also showing up at this unusual time for the Monterey Friends of Jung. Well, I guess this is it. Thank you again, Mervat, for your time and wisdom.
Yeah, must.
And
thank you all. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah.
all right, so
yes.
go
and
live
Jeff,
your purpose, everybody.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm also seeing Eva in London in August.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I'm looking